Keanu Reeves was mocked by bike dealership workers, unaware that he was the owner. On a quiet afternoon, Keanu stepped into Arch Motorcycle, his own dealership. He wasn't there for a test ride or to show off a new bike. He was there to observe, to see how his employees treated customers when he wasn't around. Recently, he noticed a few things that didn't sit right with him, and today, he was determined to get answers. Inside the showroom, two employees, Jake and Mark, were chatting behind the counter, their laughter filling the air. But it wasn't cheerful, it was full of mockery. "Did you see that guy who just left? He couldn't even start the bike. What a clown," Jake scoffed, clearly enjoying himself. "And he asked for a custom-built bike? What's he going to do with that? Look cool in front of his friends," Mark added. Keanu stayed in the background unnoticed as he quietly scanned the bikes on display. His face remained neutral, though his mind was racing. He knew how important it was to make customers feel welcome, especially when they walked into his store. Today, he was observing how these two employees handled their jobs. After a moment, Mark noticed Keanu near the motorcycles and shot a glance at Jake. "Hey, you looking for something or just wasting time?" he called out. Keanu remained calm, taking his time examining a custom bike, not responding immediately. He let Mark's words hang in the air. Jake, now looking at Keanu, grinned. "We've got some beginner bikes in the back if you're not sure what you want," he said, sizing Keanu up like a stereotype, underestimating him without even realizing it. Keanu finally turned to face them, his eyes steady and focused. "I'm just looking, but I'll know exactly what I want," he said, his voice smooth but firm. The workers exchanged glances, a flicker of doubt in their expressions, but neither of them backed down. They didn't recognize him, so they carried on dismissing him. Keanu continued to browse the showroom, quietly observing the bikes. But his focus wasn't just on the machines. It was on the workers. Jake and Mark, oblivious to who he was, kept mocking past customers, unaware that their behavior was being watched by someone who could change their lives in an instant. Jake leaned over the counter, still chuckling. "Man, you should have seen the guy earlier. He was like a deer in headlights when we asked him about the specs of that bike." "Not a clue what he was talking about," he said, then glanced at Keanu. "Bet this guy's the same, doesn't even know how to look at a bike properly." Mark nodded in agreement, but as Keanu walked closer to the counter, Mark faltered. He felt the weight of the silence settle over them. Keanu was different, calm, composed. Something about him stood out. Mark hesitated. Jake, trying to regain control, laughed it off. "What do you think, old man? Ready to buy one of these bad boys? Or just taking up space?" Keanu's gaze shifted to the bike behind the counter, and without responding immediately, he walked toward it slowly and deliberately. The workers watched him, unsure of what to make of him. Keanu wasn't like the usual customers who came and went with only a few words. He stopped beside the bike, feeling the tension rise in the room. He wasn't there to make a scene, but he wasn't going to tolerate their disrespect. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but firm. "You're quick to judge people based on how they look or what they know, but you might be missing something important." His eyes locked on Jake and Mark, who froze under his gaze. They had no idea that the man before them was the very owner of Arch Motorcycle, the one who had built the business with passion and care. The air thickened with unease. Keanu hadn't raised his voice or made any dramatic gestures, but his presence was enough to make both men question their actions. The seconds stretched on as his words lingered in the air. Mark and Jake exchanged uncomfortable glances, their mocking tone now replaced by uncertainty. Jake was the first to break the silence, shifting his weight on the stool, his smirk faltering. "What do you mean?" His voice lacked confidence now, almost defensive, as if he could feel the tension in the room but didn't know how to handle it. Keanu didn't answer right away. Instead, he continued to examine the bike, his fingers tracing the frame's intricate details as if waiting for the right moment. He could feel the workers' eyes on him, but he wasn't rushing. There was no need. He was in control, even if they didn't realize it yet. After a long pause, Keanu spoke again, his tone calm but with an undeniable edge. "It's not about what people know or how much they have. It's about respect. When you mock others, you lose sight of what truly matters." The words hit harder than Jake and Mark expected. They exchanged a look, the doubt creeping in. Jake scratched his head, his mind racing. There was something different about Keanu, his calmness, the way he spoke. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He still didn't know who Keanu was, but why was he so focused on teaching them a lesson? Mark, on the other hand, tried to laugh it off, desperate to regain control. Come on, man, relax. We were just having a little fun. Don't take it so seriously. But Keanu wasn't smiling. His gaze turned to Mark, steady and unwavering. I don't take it lightly. You should consider how you treat people. It's not just about business, it's about dignity. The words struck deep. Mark hesitated. He had never thought about his actions like that. What did dignity have to do with his job? He felt a pang of guilt, something unfamiliar. Jake, always the loudest in the room, now stood silent, unsure of how to respond. The dynamic had shifted. Keanu had planted a seed of doubt in their minds. They were starting to feel the weight of their actions, but they still didn't know who he really was. Keanu's calm presence had done what they never expected. It made them uncomfortable in a way they couldn't ignore. The atmosphere in the showroom had shifted from casual mockery to something much heavier. Jake and Mark stood frozen, struggling to hold onto their pride as Keanu's words sank in. Mark, still trying to deflect, cleared his throat and forced a grin. Look, man, no need to lecture us. We were just messing around. We're good at what we do, all right. But Keanu didn't flinch. His eyes remained steady, calm, unwavering. Fun at someone else's expense isn't fun. You may be good at your job, but there's more to it than just selling bikes. The word stung, but neither Jake nor Mark could come up with a sharp retort. The harshness of the situation began to settle in, and for the first time, they both felt vulnerable. Keanu wasn't just criticizing their actions, he was questioning their values. Something neither of them was used to. The tension was unbearable. The room fell silent for a moment, save for the hum of the air conditioning and lights. Jake shifted uncomfortably, his usual cocky grin replaced by something else. Okay, he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Maybe we crossed the line a bit. His voice was quieter, more reflective. Mark stood still, staring at Keanu, his tough exterior cracking. Something about Keanu's unshaken composure was getting to him. He felt a flicker of doubt. Had they really gone too far? Had they disrespected people just for a laugh? Keanu let the silence hang in the air, letting them process his words. He wasn't in a rush. He knew they were starting to question their actions. Finally, the realization hit. Jake hesitated for a moment before speaking again, his voice softer now. Look, man, I get it. I really do. We shouldn't have treated people that way. He paused, glancing at Mark for support, but Mark remained silent, his gaze fixed on Keanu. A realization was dawning on him. Keanu's lips curled into a slight smile. Because I built this place, and I built it with respect for the people who come through that door, whether they're experts or beginners. Jake's brow furrowed. Wait, you built this place? Mark's eyes widened. Then it hit them both. Keanu wasn't just a customer. He was the owner, the one who had created Arch Motorcycle. The room seemed to shrink as the truth settled in. Jake swallowed hard, his usual bravado gone. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize it was you, he stammered, his tone now apologetic. Mark, trying to maintain his tough guy act, shifted uncomfortably. His gaze dropped to the floor. Yeah, man, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to disrespect you. We were just messing around. Keanu, having remained calm through the entire exchange, watched them carefully. He could see their remorse starting to surface, but he wasn't letting them off easy. He believed in lessons that stayed with people, not just quick apologies. You know, Keanu said, his voice calm but heavy with meaning, it's not about realizing who I am. It's about how you treat people. The respect you show them, no matter who they are. Jake and Mark nodded, but the word stung. They hadn't fully understood before, but now, the lesson was clear. It wasn't just about Keanu. It was about how they treated everyone, customers, strangers. Everyone. They'd been treating them with arrogance and disdain, and that wasn't how to run a business, let alone live with integrity. Mark cleared his throat, sincerity breaking through his tough demeanor. You're right. We were jerks. We didn't think about it like that. He paused, taking a deep breath. I'm really sorry, man. Jake stepped forward, his expression more genuine. Yeah, same here. I should have been better. I'm sorry for disrespecting you. Keanu nodded slowly, acknowledging their apologies. But instead of offering a quick dismissal, he gave them one final lesson that would stay with them long after they left the showroom. You can apologize all you want, Keanu said, his voice still calm but carrying weight, but the real change happens when you start respecting people every day, in every interaction. That's the only way you'll grow, not just as workers, but as people. The words hit home. Jake and Mark stood there, their heads lowered in thought. For the first time, they understood that respect wasn't something you could demand. It was something you earned, not just from customers but from everyone around you. Keanu turned to leave, his task complete. But as he reached the door, he stopped and glanced over his shoulder one last time. Remember, he said, his voice soft but firm, it's not about how much you sell. It's about how you treat the people who walk through that door. And with that, Keanu walked out of Arch Motorcycle, leaving Jake and Mark to reflect on their behavior and the lessons they'd carry forward from that day. Later that afternoon, the first customer walked in. A man in his mid-30s, casually dressed, looking unsure as he surveyed the showroom. Jake and Mark exchanged a glance. This time, there was no mockery in their eyes. No condescension. Instead, they greeted the customer warmly, offering assistance without judgment. They took the time to explain the features of the bikes, answered every question with respect, and made sure the man felt valued, something that had been missing before. As the customer left with a new bike, smiling and shaking their hands in gratitude, Jake and Mark shared a glance once more. This time, there was no awkwardness, just a quiet understanding. Keanu's words had stayed with them, and they had changed the way they saw their work and the people they interacted with. It wasn't about showing off knowledge or feeling superior. It was about building a relationship, one based on trust and respect. And as Keanu's visit echoed in their minds, both Jake and Mark knew they had been given a second chance, not just to be better employees, but better people. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more lessons that can change the way we see the world. Thanks for watching.